And we're live. I am the Citizen 1776, and with me, as always, is Brady, aka the War Hamster. Not the Warhammer, the War Hamster. And soon we'll be joined by Doug, and you are right now watching the Constitutional Roundtable. And today we're going to be talking about elections. And if we want to talk about something else, we will, but we'll go from there. Trying out a new setup here. I'm using my iPad instead of my phone, so it looks like it's doing better already. But anyway, how are you doing, Brady?
I'm good. It's been a really long week with the election stuff, and
Okay.
I have been laser focused on that, trying to get some work done at the same time.
All right. All right.
Trying to get this new laptop fixed up. If I look funny, that's because I haven't figured out the camera yet. It seems like it's got a strange tint. But,
Yeah, we could actually see you now. I'm just kidding. Now, this one is actually a whole lot better. Your previous camera was a little bit darker, but this one we could actually really see you this time. So,
okay, well, maybe it's an improvement. Now, if I can just figure out how to turn up the volume on this thing.
well, I could actually hear you fine. I don't know if that's from your side or whatever, but anyways, interesting start. I'm not as energetic as I normally am, but hopefully I can be forgiven for that. I guess let's go ahead and get started, and Doug will join in here soon. He's wrapping up a meeting, so
Yeah, I don't want to get into any of the real meat of the election stuff before he gets
okay,
here because he's going to have some thoughts on it. We don't want to repeat ourselves.
sure. Then
But
what would you like to talk about?
well, let's go. You can give general impressions of the elections. How'd it go in Florida? Did you vote in person?
Actually, I did not have a chance. I did not vote, not on
Oh,
purpose. It was schedule. Schedule totally screwed things up for me. And whenever I had a chance to, then by that time it was already closed, and it was a mess for me. So this is the first time in my adult life I have not voted.
ooh,
Um,
boy, setting a bad example for
I
our audience.
know, I know, I'm a disgrace. That's okay. I'll redeem myself the next time. I'm
Well,
still learning everything around here, even though I've been here a year already. So I'm kind of not on my game, but whenever you have a busy life, it's sometimes unfortunately that kind of gets in the way. But that's no
yeah.
excuse. It's
Well,
no
that's
excuse.
that's actually a really good argument for why election day should be a 1 day national holiday, and people who have to work, there should be some kind of allowance made for them. But
100%. Yeah, because that's not really the case. It's well, that's your time. You need to go figure that out. And honestly, I think on election day, I think they should have. Here's what I think they should do. I think we should get. Well, I guess not paid, but like there should be a way where it doesn't hurt us financially, but we basically have the day off, or like we can go vote and do whatever we need to do and prioritize that, and then go from there. Yes, Tracy, you did hear that I did not vote. I know. I am. Believe me, I'm as upset as probably y'all are as well. This is the first time I've ever not voted. So, but DeSantis won.
yeah,
Um,
I was going to say, fortunately, you're in like the only state where you actually get an excuse because the people you would have voted for probably won pretty easily.
yeah, I didn't see the results, but I don't think Chris had a chance at all. Especially whenever your pros are that you're friends with Biden. I don't know how that's a selling point, but and Governor DeSantis has done so much for Florida. I have been hearing a lot. Like it seems like for whatever reason, this election, people have been like really throwing jabs at him. And from what I even heard, Trump was like throwing jabs at DeSantis or whatever for whatever reason. Um, can
Yeah,
you
yeah,
confirm?
we're gonna get into that. I want to wait for Doug for that stuff.
Okay.
A lot of thoughts on that, and I think that'll be a big part of our show tonight. So I'm glad you brought that up. But
All right.
let's hold off on going into that.
Sure. Oh, here's what we could talk about. The FBI raiding, the FBI raid that George Knapp put on put on Twitter. Did you find anything else out about that?
Oh, is that the one I sent you? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. Didn't get a chance to follow up on that at all. I just because we've been talking about Area 51, I thought you'd get a kick out of it.
Oh man, did I? I was like, Interesting. Because his do you know who that guy is? I've never heard of him, but I've seen that website before.
No, but let's tell the audience what we're talking about.
Yeah, you pull it up there and I'll put it on the screen.
Okay, cool. Basically, I was just stumbling around the internet today, and I found somewhere, I think it was on Twitter or something like that, Disclosed TV sent out something. There's a guy who's got a website that focused on Area 51, and apparently the guy's pretty passionate about it. And, well, long story short, the FBI raided the heck out of him today. And makes you wonder if there's a little bit more of that Area 51 than they're willing to admit.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about all the stuff that they're looking for, just because I wonder if he had some actual, I don't like saying intel, but like actual evidence of some things.
Yeah. Some kind of pictures got on his website that they didn't want to see, and it's kind of what I figured.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious if anyone did they close down his website, or is it still up?
Right, it was taken down. I tried to check it right afterwards.
Okay. So I would imagine, I'm hoping that someone got screenshots of whatever it was and that they share it soon, or maybe he somehow has it saved. But from my understanding, they took everything. So now, for those of you that don't know, his website was called dreamlandresort.com. Now, Dreamland is one of the names of Area 51. So the people that actually dealt with Area 51, they don't call it Area 51. They call it the test site. They call it Groom Lake. Very rarely they'll call it Dreamland, but most of the time they'll just refer to the test site. The reason why is because Area 51 is located in the Nevada test site, where there's a bunch of different sections of the test site where they've done anywhere from nuclear tests, bioweapons, what else? I don't know if you consider chemical weapons a bioweapon, but chemical weapons, I mean, you name it, they've tested it there, especially most famously nuclear weapons. And in fact, whenever Bob Lazar was there, they were still doing nuclear tests. I think they stopped in the 90s, I want to say. But at that point, they were all doing them underground because of the, I don't know if it was a treaty or what exactly it was that was signed, basically where they can't do nuclear tests above ground, even in the atmosphere and water. They had to do it underground, which supposedly the official story is that doing it underground is a better way to, I guess, make quarries or what's that term? Is that the correct term? The pits where you put water and stuff in.
Yeah, I guess that would be a quarry.
Yeah, so basically they wanted to use nuclear weapons, which was very efficient, but unfortunately the fallout was still a problem, even though it was underground, because once it explodes, all that material comes out. But anyway, so that's how that was. Luckily, the worst nuclear tests were done on the Bikini Atoll. So that was Castle Bravo, which was I believe a 15 megaton yielded nuclear weapon was done there. And actually, what a lot of people did not realize is the amount of fallout that happened. It actually spread over 5,000 square miles. So it was actually pretty nasty. So that was some interesting stuff. Anyway, let me switch back. Were you going to do an overlay or no? Or
I won't be able to bring anything up in a screen share today. I'm not set up yet. I didn't know if you wanted to pull it up.
I don't know that I have it on this one.
So I had a rather interesting voting experience. I voted in person. San Diego all of Southern California had torrential rains, but there was still massive voter turnout, much more than the last couple elections. I voted at the same place, and it took me about an hour to vote. I did not get my ballot by mail because I've just recently moved, and they've got some returned mail, which means they will not send you a ballot. So I called the registrar of voters last week, and I said, okay, here's my situation. I know I'm still a registered voter. They looked me up. It's good to go. And they go, just show up at your polling place. They'll get you signed in, and they'll let you vote. Now, the mistake I made is I didn't ask them on the phone to clarify whether they'd give me a paper ballot or if I had to use the machines. So I got there, and I asked the lady, who's really nice people, but this room is crowded, just really packed in. I don't like being in big crowded places like that too much. I'm 6'3", so I don't get too claustrophobic, but the guy standing behind me in the line was standing way too close. I had to actually turn around and ask him to take about 6 inches, take a step back. You're a guy, you really in trouble. But there's about 15% of the people in there, including the workers, were wearing masks. So and I would say about 70% of the people in the room, there's probably 100 people in there were men, not women. And this is 10 a.m. in the morning. So that's an indication that you're going to get probably a pretty decent conservative turnout. Sure. Well, long story short, I get to the front of the line and I ask the lady if I can have a paper ballot option. She goes, no, that's, you can't have that. I go, well, what about provisionals? She goes, no, that's only if you weren't registered, if we didn't have you in the list. So I go, I got to use machines. And I was bummed about that because, our machines, you use a computer screen, you touch all your choices and it prints out a paper. You verify that's what it is. But then when they read it, they're not reading your choices. They're reading the code, the barcode that got printed out as well. And we have no ability to know if the barcode's actually recording the proper votes. So that's why we don't want to use the machines. Now, when I got home, I was prepared to fill out an affidavit. I did not do that because I called the Registrar of Voters again, and really helpful people, by the way. They were professional and knowledgeable. I've been dealing with them for the last 6 months. I'm just impressed. It's a government agency that's actually effective. It really
oxymoron.
Yeah, it's really been a pleasure to work with them. They told me if I wanted to do paper ballot, given my scenario of not getting a mail-in ballot, I would have had to go vote at the Registrar of Voters itself. That's the only way to get the paper ballot. So the people at the polling place did it correctly. But I will never know whether my vote was recorded properly.
Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder, which I'm sure you're going to get into this, but it makes me wonder how long this has been going on. I know that there was evidence of, or supposedly there was evidence of election fraud with Kennedy. That's what got Kennedy elected over Nixon, supposedly.
Well, no, that's actually documented. There's Illinois, Chicago Mafia flipped Illinois for Kennedy. And that probably had something to do with his connections with his father, the bootlegger. But anyway, Kennedy was elected because the mafia flipped Illinois.
Yeah. Now, kind of on that Kennedy thing, what do you think about Kennedy?
Had a chance to be one of the best presidents ever. It could have been one of those people that I think the people who likely killed him are people who enemy of my enemy is my friend. That version of Kennedy. My mom was a big Kennedy fan, and she was pretty politically astute. So he had a chance for greatness. There's some policies I wasn't going to agree with, but he did take on. There's a number of things he did, like taking on the CIA, stopping the Bay of Pigs. Like I said, I had a chance to be one of the greatest presidents ever. The potential was there.
Yeah. What do you think about Nixon?
Quite a bit. He's deep state through and through. Nixon was always part of this Council of Foreign Relations. His entire cabinet was Council of Foreign Relations. This is just a connected guy, bright guy. I still remain highly suspicious of the motivations of how he got taken out with Watergate. I don't know if the FBI was involved with that, what the motivations were.
Well,
the crimes that he allegedly committed was for the cover-up. Just breaking into Watergate Hotel, that's child's play compared to what we've seen in Watergate. So
well, apparently, according to Dr. Greer, which I guess he has evidence of this, Watergate, Kennedy, and Marilyn Monroe are all tied together with government secrets. So Kennedy, supposedly, according to Greer, which I guess he has evidence of, I did not see it, so I don't know. But I guess supposedly, Kennedy, whenever he was having an intimate moment with Marilyn Monroe afterwards, he shared some secrets about aliens or some sort of thing in regards to that. And so that's why Kennedy was killed. That's why Marilyn Monroe was killed. And then supposedly Nixon was going to do the same thing and try to disclose a bunch of stuff. And that's why they had Watergate happen. And apparently Burl Ives has all this information, or had it rather.
So I know the name Burl Ives. Why am I not?
He's the one that sang a lot of those songs for like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer on like the little claymation. Yeah.
Yeah, it's when I don't understand the connection with Hollywood and all this stuff, but apparently there is one.
Yeah, but now, like I said, I don't know how much of what Greer says is baloney and how much is real. I mean, obviously, he feels everything he says is real, but I don't know.
Well, it's the thing with a guy like these guys with, if you make outlandish stories or outlandish claims, you should have gotta have outlandish proof.
Right.
And the lack of that, you should be skeptical. The absence of that proof.
Yeah, and like I said, he may have had some, like, supposedly the way how all this was found out was a letter that was written by a government assassin that put the hit out on Marilyn Monroe, and supposedly he had the letter, or Burl Ives gave the letter to somebody, something like that. I don't know. It was in that video you sent me where it was like that 4-hour video.
Yeah,
he detailed that. That's the same one where he was talking about how there's a difference between aliens and extraterrestrials, where aliens were the biomechanical creatures that the military made with their flying saucers to abduct people, which I could believe that one a whole lot more than real aliens, if I'm just saying. But I guess there's that difference and stuff like that, and that's that one that he was talking about. So I'll tell you what, though, I'm still trying to nail down that connection on Area 51, and I'm finding out more and more, though, the engineers and everybody that was involved. Like, for instance, Jason Scientists. Supposedly, that's an elite group of.
Okay. Yeah, I do know that. I have read about this one. Yeah, there's something to that. That's you know what, we had to go down that rabbit hole one of these days after doing some more homework. It's been about a year or two since I dug into that one.
Yeah,
there's definitely something to that is real. These Jason Scientists, it appears to be very authentic.
And, and it was also in the book that I'm reading right now, Pentagon's Brain by Annie Jacobson. The Jason Scientists were put together to basically solve the unsolvable problems that the military and the government would run in, as far as like anything scientific, anything an engineering problem, which also ties in with the beginning of Area 51 and EG&G. So I know that there's a list of who those scientists were, but I don't know if it's available. But I'm guessing that there's going to be some MIT guys on it. There's going to be some Caltech guys on it. There's also going to be some guys from EG&G on it. And I would imagine there's a connection between the Jason Scientists and Area 51 that started in 51.
For the audience, that's Jason, Jason. It's not an acronym. It had another meaning. I remember that, but I've got some of that stuff bookmarked. I'll shoot it over to you.
Okay. Well, hello.
Hello, gentlemen. I apologize for my tardiness. I didn't think this meeting would interfere because it was supposed to start at 2. The gentleman got caught in traffic coming from the border, and he didn't arrive till 4:15.
Oh, man.
Well, so it is what it is. I appreciate your patience. For the audience approval and for the War Hamsters knowledge, it is a friend of mine who's a retired Navy SEAL, retired intelligence, federal intelligence, more specifically CIA. So, and I had a lot of questions for him.
Was this a secret meeting, or was this like
well, let's put it this way. Normally when I meet with him, I have to leave my phone in the truck. This one I didn't have to.
Okay, so it wasn't top secret.
Yeah, see, now it was more of a legal thing. For the audience's sake and all of you, I am a part of an organization called the Constitution Association, and boy, something's going on. And December 7th, 2020, we launched a lawsuit against Kamala Harris, which you've probably heard me talk about.
Uh-huh.
And come on, George, keep up. And we're getting ready. We're looking at the possibility of appealing to the United States Supreme Court. And this particular friend of mine has experience at that level and knows people at that level. So I wanted to make sure that the Supreme Court possibility was something that we could, talk about. And he's got some connections, and he looks like he's going to be able to connect me with a retired judge who's a total patriot, has a law degree, but she's retired, but she's such a patriot. He said she would probably jump at this opportunity to help us, because the lawyer we have that's helping us right now, God bless him, he's a great guy, but he doesn't have whatever you're supposed to have on file to go to the Supreme Court. I guess there's a license or something like that, and he has no experience. And I really want a Supreme Court experienced lawyer in our corner.
Makes sense.
So that's that. For those of you in the audience that are not really sure what I'm talking about, Kamala Harris is not eligible for the office of the vice presidency. She, see if I get that light out of your screen there. She is not a natural born citizen. Both of her parents were visitors here on school visas, school visas, basically, student visas. And so she's not only not a natural born citizen, there's a question on whether or not she's even a citizen. And so she's ineligible for office and needs to be removed. And we have filed a lawsuit for that. We filed it in the Southern Federal District Court. And from there, we were dismissed. The court said that the Congress are the ones that are supposed to determine eligibility. That is not true. That's not what the Constitution says. So we appealed it. We're basing our argument on what's called the enumeration doctrine. They only have the authority if it enumerates it in the Constitution. It doesn't. If something is not enumerated at all, then it goes to the 10th Amendment, which basically then takes the authority and or the power and gives it to the states or to the people, which is the case. And hence, we're the people. So that's that. And so that's how the Ninth Circuit's looking at it right now. They're looking at that appeal, that argument. I am fully expecting them to try to dismiss us. They don't want an oral argument, because oral argument goes to oral argument becomes public record. They don't want our argument to get out there to the public or be available to the public or be shared with the public. So they want to try to get us on technicalities. And that's why they're trying to stop us. So I need somebody when we go to Supreme Court that really believes in what we're doing, has the experience. And so that's kind of why I was meeting today, is I want, and like I said, my friend may have somebody for me, a retired federal judge, a retired federal judge who has practiced law. She's retired, but she might be willing to come out of retirement for this one, he says. He's going to present her with our 63-page original complaint, and then we've got another, I think it's like 25 pages of for the appeal. Present that to her, see what she thinks, and go from there. But so it was an important meeting, good meeting. Unlike last week, I totally remembered, but it just, yeah, the traffic, Southern California, Andrew, you know how traffic is, right? You've heard about it out here, what it's like.
Yeah,
you know what we call our freeways, right? Parking lots.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
So anyways, that's that. I apologize for taking up all this time, but I thought it was appropriate to explain to the audience what we're talking about.
In Florida, we call ours Bristol. So, because people like to drive like they're in NASCAR. So, well, anyway, glad that worked out for you. I'm now really curious on who this SEAL is. I actually have some connections with some SEALs that were a part of CIA, GRS, and such. So,
right.
I'm kind of curious on who this guy is. He might know the people that I know, but.
Well, it's funny because this guy spent some time in CIA. He's very very, very private. It's funny because I'm fortunate to have him as a friend, and I love him to death. But man, it's funny because he's paranoid as hell, and for good reason. He knows what the other side is up to because he used to be on the inside and watch them pull the garbage they pull. And I mean, like I said, 99% of the time I meet with him, my phone's in my vehicle, and I got to use a burner phone to communicate with him if it's not in person. I mean, that's typically his way.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, I'll tell you this. Maybe later I'll send you a couple texts of some names and see if he knows who they are.
All right. Very good.
Anyway, so elections. That's what we wanted to talk about today. So.
Yeah, and of course we have to be careful on certain things we say because we're on, YouTube. Yes, I know I say YouTube, but it's fun calling them YouTube. But anyway.
Well,
all right. So who wants to start?
Yeah, let me jump in if you don't mind.
Sure.
This is something I've been studying an awful lot on these stories, and Doug's heard part of this. But when we were waiting on Doug, Andrew asked me about it. He'd heard that DeSantis was getting a bunch of grief. Well, if you go back to the elections, you start looking at the coverage again from all the major networks, including Steven Crowder, who had all the Daily Wire guys on for his 7-hour live stream, which, by the way, is the biggest live stream ever done outside of YouTube. Was Crowder's election night live stream? Like 700,000 people or something like that watching. So that's really good. That's really good news for a Rumble stream to be getting those kind of numbers. If we want an alternative for YouTube. Well, what happened is, I want to set expectations. 2 months ago, nobody was talking about a red wave. They were talking about the Democrats actually holding the House, because abortion was going to be, the topic everyone was voting on, and saving our democracy, which are ridiculous topics. 30 days ago, they weren't talking about a red wave. The red wave stuff starting to show up in the last week. Well, if you look at the generic congressional ballot, which is just how many people voted Republican versus Democrat, the Republicans won by 4 points, which is a gigantic swing from the 2018 midterms where they lost by 1.1. So what I'm building up the case is all these networks screamed at once that, it became a red trickle and it's Trump's fault. All his candidates lost. No, he went like 211 and 13. He had like a 93% winning percentage. We had over 4%. The Republicans got over 4% gain on the Democrats in the generic vote. What didn't happen was the RNC leadership, like Mitch McConnell and Ronna McDaniel and Kevin McCarthy, didn't put the money towards the right strategic races, and they lost a lot of close ones in states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and it looks like Georgia, which could have been a win, but the same battleground states. The fault was on the establishment, but the narrative, they all came out at the same time about 6 p.m. Pacific on election night was, oh, this is Trump's fault. Trump's lost the party. People aren't going to vote for Trump candidates. Well, that's not what happened. And we see this in Arizona. The biggest landslide was in Florida, and everyone started to pit Trump versus DeSantis. And apparently what's going on behind the scenes is, what's his name? Karl Rove and Paul Ryan and some of the other establishment GOP types basically have been saying, we're going to have DeSantis run against Trump in 2024. Well, Trump immediately preemptively gets out there and starts bashing on DeSantis, saying, I made him, he barely got across the finish line in his first race and stuff like that. And Trump is being a bit of a blowhard. And I think he's acted poorly this week, but I understand why. DeSantis hasn't said a word, nor can he, because literally he just campaigned and said, I ran for governor to run for 4 years. I'm not going to start campaigning immediately after winning my governorship. I intend to govern. So he's in a bit of a decent position, but Trump's going after him pretty hard. The establishment GOP is pushing DeSantis really hard, and Trump's just getting out in front of it. But everyone, if you go to Twitter, you're going to see so many Republican types saying Trump's done. I'm never voting for him again, et cetera, et cetera. And that's ridiculous. Politics is way too volatile to ever say somebody's done, and Trump's base is very loyal. So it's all a bunch of sound and fury on that.
Here's a question for you. There's talk of that it's interesting that a lot of rhinos and such are very pro DeSantis, and then obviously anti-Trump. Is there anything to that?
Yes, there is. Look, DeSantis is a great governor, but as a congressman, did you hear him calling out the swamp? Did you call him talking about how the federal government had no business legislating half the laws they're doing? Was he a great reformer in Congress? No, you don't get to office, with very few exceptions, unless you are playing the game of the GOP or the DNC. He's definitely part of the machine. He's a very good governor. And, in a world without Trump, I would say this is a guy, in a normal world, this is a guy that, looks like he's presidential. But, outside of being late to the party and then having really good COVID policies and being fantastic, fighting the culture war against woke culture, that's what this guy's done. And he's doing it great. But he didn't invent it. It was right in front of his face, and he took advantage of it. So I like the guy, but he's not the one who started any of these movements. And he came from the establishment. If the establishment likes him, that means they think.
Go ahead, Doug.
Well, Brady, it's also sort of certain people are good at certain things. He's a fantastic governor, and you're right. I don't know if he would be good congressionally. I don't know if he'd be good as president. I don't know, but Ted Cruz is a great example of that. He's a fantastic senator. I don't think he would make a very good president. It really depends on what their skill set is. Also, I think you're onto something. While I like DeSantis, I think he makes great decisions as governor. A lot of these people do have half a foot or a foot in the establishment world. I don't know if DeSantis does, but there are indicators that might be the case. And so, we need someone who's, if we're going to get this country back, we need to do like we did with Trump and have someone who's an outsider, someone who can't be bought, someone who can't be steered, someone who can't be pushed because they have a political career they're worried about. That was one of the things that was the appeal about Trump, was not necessarily just where he stood on the issues or what his beliefs were or whatever, but that he couldn't be politically bought per se, because he didn't care about a political career. He's already successful. He's an outsider. He doesn't, care about the games. He's not a part of a clique, and that was the appeal. And so I hate to say this, but once there's the world beyond Trump, so to speak, we got to find another outsider type if we're really going to have somebody that I think is truly in our corner. I don't know if a current office holder would be exactly what we want or need.
No,
I'm
in
the
agreement.
thing that helps with. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to agree with Doug. That's 100% reading my mind. We're on the same page on that. You're not going to. The swamp's not going to drain itself. You can't expect the DC establishment to reform itself. It's not. Central government is not going to rein in its own powers. It's got to become.
Right.
This is not a top-down solution. It's got to be bottom-up, which means it's got to be a populist. And a populist doesn't come from the establishment.
Right. Well, that kind of goes back to the judicial review thing. My biggest problem with judicial review is not necessarily that judges make these decisions, but the fact that these judges are part of the group that they're making the decisions about. It is the federal government deciding for itself what its own authorities are. They're, in other words, they're auditing themselves. They are judging for themselves. I mean, you would never. You would never want an internal agency to audit itself. It's supposed to be an outside agency, and that kind of is the same thing when it comes to having a president that would be, an outsider. Is you want someone from the outside. We're not going to solve this with inside people. The swamp, even the good people in the swamp are still a part of it. We've got to have that outside voice, that outside audit, so to speak, when it comes to those who are going to help us get this thing back to being a republic.
Andrew, you still there?
Yeah, I was just grabbing another water.
Hey, so I've got some live updates coming in right now from Arizona.
Okay.
So let me start reading some of these. So I'll set the table first. Maricopa County somehow won't be done counting until past Sunday, which is amazing considering the state 3 times the size, like Florida or Texas, could count in one day, and countries much bigger like Brazil and France can count in a day, but somehow Arizona can't do it. And Katie Hobbs is overseeing an election that she's running in, which should be a conflict of interest. And for the record, the same thing happened in Georgia with Republicans. So let's call out, be consistent. They should have recused too. You can't oversee an election that you're involved in. That's just silly. They're holding back a lot of the votes that are going to favor the Republican 4, which is, of course, Kari Lake for governor, Blake Masters for senator, Mark Fincham for Secretary of State, and Abe Hamadan for Attorney General. Abe and Kari are the strongest of those two. In fact, Abe's got the lead already. Fincham and Masters are going to be, they're going to need, well, they've got a chance to get over the finish line with these late drops. So you need to see about 62% of the remaining ballots go in favor of the Republicans. And that's the worst case scenario. Kari Lake is probably a lock to win, as long as, assuming no magical ballots show up. So I've got Mojave County, which is about 10,000 ballots. And there's about somewhere between around 400,000 or 500,000 ballots left to be counted. Those went about 79% for Kari Lake and about 76% for Masters. And the other two are going to be in between. I've got a La Paz County, which is only about 849 ballots, went very strongly, 75 and 71% for the Republicans. There's a couple bad news ones here. Let me go to a different website. Those are the good news ones that just came in. And if those who know me know that I really want Kari Lake to win.
Yeah.
This one came, 24,000 ballots came in from Pima County, which is down by University of Arizona, I believe. And those went about 66% for the Democrats. So that's bad news. That's a big batch, and that went the wrong direction, but not decisively so. La Paz I already gave you. Mojave County, 10,000 ballots, 79% for Kari Lake, 76% for Blake Masters. That's a big one. That almost offsets the bad news one earlier. Just to put it into context, Blake Masters, before these drops started, was 115,000 votes behind. So he needed 62% of the apparent outstanding ballots. Kari Lake was only down by 27,000 ballots. She's pretty much a lock. Fincham's a little bit ahead of the Masters. And Hamada is even in front of Kari Lake. So that's Arizona's going on right now. I think we'll have a final number. Well, let me see if that's been updated on Fox.
I just read something on Yahoo News that's interesting. I wanted to see if maybe you saw it whenever once you're done with what you're talking about.
No, go ahead, read it out.
So apparently on Yahoo News, it says Arizona audit boss claims CIA may have produced disinformation and election fraud in new film. The CEO of the film hired by the Arizona State or the Arizona Senate to conduct an audit in Maricopa County 2020 election. Oh, looks like this might be old then. Well, anyway, I mean, it looks like, that maybe the CIA has a hand in this. What do you think?
Always possible.
Yeah. The internal agencies, not just the CIA, but any agency, there's always a chance one of them has a hand in all kinds of things. You never know for sure, but it's definitely, as Brady said, it's definitely possible. I never count out that possibility for sure.
Well, here's kind of a question that I'm going to throw at the both of you. Why now? I mean, yes, there's been evidence of fraud in the past. I mean, why does it seem like there's so much now? Why?
Because they're so close.
Well,
they're so close.
They're so close.
They're pulling out all the stops. They're so close. They're pulling out of the stops, whatever it takes. That said, they've always been up to it. But see, before, they didn't believe that they for sure had it. They were still in the process of creating that opportunity. And so if you go back to A. Ralph Epperson's book about this unseen hand, you inject a little bit here and there, you expose a little bit here and there, but you don't really expose who and what you really are because, you don't want to, scare the locals, the natives into, not hanging on to you. But once you think you've crossed that Rubicon, once you've jumped the shark and you believe you're so close then you pull out all the stops. Then you throw everything at it because you're getting impatient. The power is within your grasp. You want it to happen before, you take your dirt nap or whatever, but they're so close.
I'll give you a complimentary answer to that.
Okay.
For the last 20 years or even longer, in the major races, the establishment, it didn't matter if it was Republican or Democrat. This was somebody who's part of the gang.
Right.
So you didn't have to go to all these stops you couldn't to stop outsiders. Trump started something, by being an outsider and woke up a lot of people to what's really going on.
He's got him panicked, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, it's he's the glitch in the machine, or for those who've ever read Isaac Asimov Foundation series, this is basically talking about millions and millions of years of human projection history that they had plotted with a computer, and an aberration came in called the mule that threw basically.
Yep. Trump is the mule.
Yep, he is the mule.
Yeah, and, I agree, and I've used that example before, as a matter of fact.
Interesting.
And the thing is, here's the other thing I was telling my class, matter of fact, last night in Carlsbad is, it's all about power. When you don't get this close to this much power and not start pulling out the spots, pulling out all the stops. And so that's the reason why I believe, without saying certain words, that in this election, they were going to do whatever it took, because the ends justify the means. They're really close. They expect to get where they're going to get, and also see, and this is a thing, Trump was a monkey in their works, a monkey wrench in their works. He was a stick in the spokes, and they did not like that. They don't want it to happen again. So they're going to, not only are they getting impatient, but they know what it's like to have a monkey wrench thrown in their works, and they do not want it to happen again. They're going to make sure they do everything they can, anything. Once again, I'm not saying certain words, but you can imagine anything they can to make sure they hold on to that power.
And Kari Lake appears to be the same.
They don't want another stick in the spokes.
Well, here's a kind of a let me say this real quick, Brady. Here's kind of an interesting thought: is what if Trump is part of their plan? Do you think that's possible?
Nope.
Why?
Because I have never seen the Republican establishment and Democratic establishment and the entire apparatus of the DC bureaucratic machine ever go after anybody as hard as they went after Trump. They expose themselves left and right. The Durham investigation's proven that. There's no way they would have basically shown their true colors if Trump was part of them.
Well, here's a question: could that not be all theater?
No. Yes, it could be, but that's just not likely. If Trump was part of the game, there's no way they would have acted this irrationally. They panicked. He's a threat to them. Yeah.
Here's something real quick. Someone said that looks like Pelosi got the boot. Is that true?
It's not official yet. We got to get to 218. But it.
They're at 211 right now. Last I looked.
It's 211 is correct, and the Democrats got closer. They're up to 199. But they're reporting races. They're trying to give this appearance that the Republicans had a really bad day, and the Democrats didn't. This is part of the, what they're doing with Trump. On an election night, trying to make it seem like Trump lost. They're going to release the Republican wins as late as they possibly can. They're going to release the Kari Lake victory as late as they can to make it seem like there wasn't this, big wave or this change in momentum. But Republicans have gained in the House 2 elections in a row, and Nancy Pelosi is going to lose the gavel. I project 223 approximately House seats, and although that's not a great majority, it takes the gavel away from Nancy.
It's a majority.
And more importantly, it puts Republicans at the head of the committees, and hopefully Jim Jordan leads the Senate Judiciary Committee. And the Freedom Caucus is right now negotiating with Kevin McCarthy, saying, look, if you want our support to be, to get the gavel, we want to head these committees. And who knows? I don't trust congressional committees. Doug and I have talked about whether they're even constitutional or not. But we're not going to get justice through the Department of Justice. So that's really our last hope to get the entire Russiagate stuff really out in the open. So it's a big deal. I mean, that's the reason to celebrate right there. And that was our number one goal, was to take the House, because it does 2 things. We get the investigations, and it stops the Joe Biden agenda dead on arrival. Biden is, he won't get another one of these bills through. So we basically stopped the bleeding. So we survived. This is a victory for that. But I'll give you another reason I'm optimistic, and I'm looking at the chat. There's a couple of our people were talking about they didn't do well locally. Well, there's talk. In fact, even Dan Bongino talked about today. California and New York saved the election for the Republican Party. California flipped 4 or 5 congressional seats. California gained seats in this. New York flipped 4 House seats. And they almost took the governorship. A lot of that had to do with Cuomo. Oops, did we lose Doug?
I think we did. He's probably going to switch to the computer if I had to guess.
All right. Well, I'll keep going on this. Locally here in San Diego, a lot of our local candidates did really well. We flipped a few state legislatures, or have a chance to. We've got a congressional seat right now. It's at 50-49, a chance to flip. Local school board races, and my friends and were involved in did really well. Same thing with planning commission. California gained on the Democrats this election cycle. So if that's not a sign of good momentum, but you go to listen to the media, it sounds like, oh, it's a total failure, and the Democrats are celebrating. Well, no, you lost across the board. You just won a few key states. Yeah, they won a couple governorships that are, Michigan and Pennsylvania are a mess. Yeah, they got to fix. Those people need our help. They need help from somewhere. Wisconsin, everyone goes, oh, they did terribly. They lost a couple things, but no, Ron Johnson kept his seat. They gained in the legislature, and people aren't talking about this, but there were, I think, 6 state Supreme Courts that had a chance to switch hands. And
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, and the Republicans won 4 of those 6. So all the panic in the media is all fabricated. It wasn't a perfect election, but I blame that on the GOP leadership.
Well, what's the benefit of all this? I mean, if the votes are in, what does it matter if they make it seem one way or the other? I mean, at
politics.
There we go.
Yeah, but do you understand?
Sorry, I lost you guys.
Like, let's say all 3 of us vote, okay, and we have, let's say, a 4th person that does the media. Let's say our votes are already in. What's the point of creating this this panic or anything like that when it's what can be done? It's not like someone could go out and vote again.
Well, it's to damage Trump, to make it seem like the Trump no longer has the ability to get people to the polls.
It's a part. That's a part of it, Brady. But let me add something here. It was also to try to get some Republicans not to vote. Gosh, if we've got a red wave, I don't even need to vote. It's done. We've got it. Why vote? So it was also a way to discourage votes, but then it's also one other thing. It's a psychological game. If you're at 2 and you're told you're going to get to 10 and you only get to 6, oh, it was a failure. But if you're at 2 and you're told you're to get there, you're excited. So they set the bar higher, knowing it wasn't going to get there, so that we would be disappointed. So it's a mind game as well.
Yeah, but also, wasn't it said that the media was trying to make it seem like there was no red wave?
They wanted to call
more people to vote.
Yeah, they wanted to call a red trickle. So Biden's taking a victory lap, saying,
"Yeah,
I lost fewer seats than any other incumbent in a midterm, any other president in a midterm in like 40 years." Yeah, you lost seats. The key word being you lost. Yeah, just like 2020 was not a Democrat victory. Republicans gained in the House, gained in the Senate. Almost held the Senate. They lost the presidency and 3 key Senate races, and everywhere else across the board, Republicans won in 2020. The momentum is that direction. And again, I talked about the generic congressional ballot. There's a 5.1% swing in 4 years. That's a big deal where the momentum is. And they're doing everything they can to change the narrative. And that's what politics is all about. And the media is all in on it. But it's just, at the end of the day, they asked Biden yesterday, are you going to do anything to change? He goes, heck no, the people just haven't seen my policies work yet. Well, we know better than that. So, but the good thing is all the garbage they've been passing, all the spending, that should be dead on arrival. So that's a victory.
Your life about perception.
Everything's about perception. It doesn't matter what the truth is. It's a matter what people think the truth is.
With you saying that, Doug, it kind of brings me back to a very commonly referred to book, 1984.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going to mention a part in there where they're constantly. Do you remember that book, Doug?
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorite books of all time.
Do you remember the 2 Minutes of Hate? So, if I remember right, that's where they were showing the war films of Eurasia and what was the other one? Because Airstrip 1 was England, Oceania was the United States. I want to say other parts of Europe and Australia. Which, fun fact, Australia's continent is actually known as is actually referred to as Oceania. Kind of fun. But anyway, with those Minutes of Hate, you know, with creating a narrative and stuff like that, I mean, more and more, I'm seeing the connections into that. Do you think that maybe that all this is maybe there's a hidden test in there to see how strong they can control and manipulate? I mean, we always kind of knew that, but do you
like
think
testing,
that there's
like
maybe
sticking a toe in the water, testing the water kind of thing?
Well, like with the election, like the proof of concept was the 2020 election. All right, well, if we're gonna go for it, let's just go for it, and they went for it and they won. Now they're gonna be like, well, how let's get away with this as much as possible. Well, maybe by creating this. Their proof of concept has been this whole time of uninformed individuals. I mean, what do you think our future is going to be looking like as far as information, communication, and such? Because I mean, it seems like we're heading that way.
You know, I don't think it's testing the waters or trying this out as much as it is arrogance. They believe that there's no stopping them now. They've gotten to the point where, pardon my language, but they believe their own bullshit. And I think it's arrogance. But what's bad about it is this. What follows arrogance, when they start seeing challenges they didn't expect because they were so arrogant, is paranoia. And when the paranoia sets in, that's when you start seeing very bad things. Right now, I think it's not testing the water. I think it's arrogance. I think that they think they've got this. I don't think that they think that nobody can stop them. And that when things do happen, it was just an anomaly and they'll fix it next time. They believe that Donald J. Trump in 2016 was just an anomaly. That's not really what Americans think. And they were bold-faced lying, but they got to the point where they believe their own lies. And so I believe it's arrogance, and I believe what's going to follow as they start getting tested and we start making inroads that they don't expect, because we start catching them doing certain things or start correcting certain things or start using methods that keeps them from doing certain things. I think the paranoia will set in. And when the paranoia sets in, people lose their lives.
Brady, what's your take?
Yeah, I'm just digesting more numbers coming in Arizona. It's going to be close with Masters. He's going to be within range. There's an awful lot of game day voters that haven't been tabulated, like several 100,000, and we have some numbers on that. So I'm still focused on that. So I kind of didn't hear the last minute or so.
What? Oh, I see.
Doug, your voice is coming in and out.
The CIA is hearing us.
Yeah, CIA's blocking you.
You hear me okay?
Yeah, you're better now.
Yeah, you're better now.
All right. I was just saying, it wasn't as much testing the waters as arrogance. I believe they think there's no stopping them now. But what's going to happen is we're going to make inroads. We're going to put sticks in their spokes that they don't expect, I believe. And that's when the paranoia sets in. And I believe once the paranoia sets in, that's where people lose their lives.
Yeah, and that's why they focus so much. I mean, look, a couple of factors about this election that nobody's talking about are, you try to compare turnout numbers between the last midterm cycle or the last couple midterm cycles, and there's no reason to do that. The numbers don't make sense. There's no longer correlation. the whole paradigm changed because of mail-in voting. And the reason Pennsylvania and Michigan went the way they did is because of early mail-in ballots. That completely changes all of the math when it comes to elections. But there's other factor that nobody's talking about, and they should be. About 6 or 7 months ago, Joe Biden issued Executive Order 14019. And what that did is he ordered all of the federal agencies to actively participate in voter registration in specific areas, obviously Democratic areas. That's what they were doing. This was the federal government putting its thumb on the scales of the election. Now, we can't quantify that right now, but in a year where Republicans won the generic ballot by 4% and yet didn't gain anywhere as near as many seats as they hoped to, and specifically in some strategic areas like Pennsylvania and Michigan, that's got to be talked about, because the government probably how many voter registrations did they do for Democrats over the last 6 months? That happened. I'm not making this up. So what I'd like to see, Doug, I think we ought to be able to FOIA that Freedom of Information request. Let's find out that information. How many registrations did the federal government do and where over the last 6 months? That's got to be public information.
And then, of course, then you go into the constitutionality. They have the authority to do that?
Well, I don't know about the constitutionality, but the legality, there actually is a loophole written in this, something written in the last 4 or 5 years or in recent memory that allowed Biden to actually do it. So it was legal. Whether it's constitutional, that's a different question. Yeah. That had something to do with national security. Let's see if I can remember how this worked. The federal governments are allowed election security. Federal agencies had to be involved in that. All kinds of stuff. We all know it's nonsense.
Was it legislatively accomplished or was it executively accomplished?
It was legislatively accomplished first. Trump could have done the same, and then Biden came in and did it. So that's how I remember reading that article, but I can double check it.
All right.
But anyways, I think that's the elephant in the room, and I don't hear anyone talking about it. Because that happened. I mean, if they registered 1 million people, and specifically in certain areas, that's how you swing races. Especially races that are decided by 30 or 40,000 people, that can be done. Yeah, I mean, and you're registering, and of course, they only had 5 million people coming across the southern border that shouldn't be eligible to vote, but if they're registered, they voted. So. How do we know that? How do we know that the, immigration wasn't registering people? There
are some states like Oregon where you get a driver's license, you're automatically registered regardless of who you are. And the question is, how many in states like that, or California, you've got in some areas motor voter laws, and so yeah, you're right. That's a legitimate question. How many illegal alien votes? How many? For lack of a better way of saying it, the dead rose after 2 years of being asleep to vote. How many of that went on? Now, I am of the understanding, and gentlemen, let me know if I'm on target here, that Mike Lindell has provided evidence to certain things. Can't say the words, but certain things, or at least it's considered possibly that he did. Is there any truth to that? Please don't get into details, but a yes or no, do you know?
I've seen nothing conclusive or definitive or headline worthy yet. They were monitoring a lot of the elections. There are some patterns that we've seen before in terms of the tallies that may or may not be unnatural.
I've got a video of an unnatural tally appearing in New York, which I plan to put on politicalpistachio.com probably tonight. But but we haven't seen anything definitive is the question, I guess.
Yeah, well, I'll be on a call with Dr. Frank early next week, and I want to hear what he has to say. I haven't heard a comment from him yet, but he's one of the better data guys out there, data analysts, and I want to see what he saw. It'll be interesting, because
Dr. Frank's a specialty specifically as what?
Well, he's a mathematician, the professor. He was the one that what he came out with, where his name first crossed the radar. It's after the 2020 election, he realized that he could actually predict. He knew how many people were registered of every age group on the graph, and he would predict, how many people typically vote. And he figured out their algorithm, he thinks, and he could predict basically within a 99 R-squared, 99th percentile R-squared, what the voter results would be based on the algorithm he thinks they put into the system. I've gone through his work about 20% of the way through, and it checks out so far. But I can't I can't see everything he's done yet. I don't have that kind of access. I've only met the guy twice. So,
Well, as you get to know him, let's definitely stay in touch with him, because I am, and this is probably for conversations outside the show, but I'll say it real quick. I'm in search of speakers for next year as annual dinner, and he's one of the names I'm considering that ought to be a part of that annual dinner. The theme of the dinner is going to be, and I think Brady will grin when he hears this, because liberty matters. So
that was my favorite Doug speech of all time.
All right.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I'm introducing something new in the show.
Okay.
When we should have done this about 4 minutes ago, but y'all were having such good conversation, I'm going to introduce closing thoughts. So basically, you give closing thoughts on the main topic, and then we will close out the show, and go from there. So what is your closing thoughts on this election, on what we talked about tonight? Start with Doug. We're going to go to Brady, and then I'll close it out.
When I was a kid, and I mentioned this once again at last night's class, my dad had a saying. There's three kinds of people. There's people who make things happen, people who watch what happened, and people who wonder what happened. And unfortunately, right now, I think our allies have been more on the side of either wondering what happened or watching what happened. And and when it comes to what we saw, I think what is going on is we're not deep enough into the game yet. We have poll watchers, but we don't have enough poll employees. We have vote watchers. We don't have enough vote counters. We have a lot of people who are running for office, but we don't have a whole lot of people yet inside office. We need to get deeper involved, and for lack of a better word, infiltrate. I think that is what it's going to take for us to start getting back our republic. But we want to save our republic. I hear anybody again say save our democracy, I am going to be real close to wanting to just slap them upside the head. But I do think that the key here is that we need to get deeper in. We don't need to just fight. We need to get within the internal organs of the machine that we're up against. Brady?
Yeah, I'm gonna probably echo. I'm gonna jump on Doug's coattails and say, it's amazing. We've got people all over this country that are waking up to realize there's something wrong, and a lot of people have done a lot of research and found some stuff out. And a lot of those people are spending a lot of time online sharing their thoughts with other people instead of getting involved locally. We've got local races being decided by 20 or 50 votes, and you get this one person goes out there and door knocks for one weekend, and that swings an election. Now you start doing that nationwide. Now you join my canvassing effort. We're going to go out there and try to clean the voter rolls. We'll get 1,000 affidavits in San Diego County and be able to take it to the sheriff. Now, whether they act on it or not, I don't know. We don't have the best sheriff in the world, but we can show that the voter rolls are dirty. We can get it logged as officially, and you do that around the country. You keep the pressure up. Sooner or later, we're going to get some clean voter rolls. And the national embarrassment that Arizona and Nevada are feeling today to take a week and a half to count their ballots, we got to stay on that, because obviously it's not that difficult. We got modern technology, and yet we've never had a problem counting votes election day until the last 5-10 years. It's ridiculous. It's an embarrassment. All this stuff needs to be fixed. And I think if we had, and people are losing their faith in the elections, but don't lose confidence. Get mad and get involved. That's my closing thought. Get involved. Stop playing around with theories on the computer screen.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Those are good thoughts, gentlemen. Sorry for just throwing that on you, but it's something I'm wanting
It's a good idea.
Need to collect it a little bit better. That's my fault. But you know, like you always say, Doug, this is a little big show, and I want this show to be so big. And with that, I need to introduce structure. So not like y'all are causing chaos, but I just it's just something that I'm working on as a host. So fantastic show tonight, gentlemen. And for all of you,
I apologize about the mobile version of mine. I had planned to be home by then. Like I said, the meeting was at 2, but he didn't show up till 4:15. Kind of threw me off a couple hours.
yeah, that's not a problem. That is not a problem. So all y'all that will be watching later, so remember our shows are every Friday night at 8:30 Eastern time or 5:30 Pacific time. And then if you live in the middle, well, you could do the math there, add or subtract an hour. But anyway, this election, if it worked out for you, great. If not, you know, that's like that was said just a second ago. Get out there and vote. Get out there and make a difference. You know, you have the right to vote for a reason. It's to make your voice heard. And if you don't feel heard, then be more active. Go out there, petition other people. You know, it's not gonna happen just by you sitting on your butt doing nothing. You know, and all kind of whenever I hear this stuff, it always makes me think of what Ben Franklin said to Miss Powell. You know, she asked, you know, what do we have? And he said, we have a republic if you can keep it. Well, I'm asking y'all, do you want to keep your republic or do you want to lose it to oligarchy? That is my closing thoughts. So this was a fantastic show, and Doug, I'm gonna have you close us out.
United we stand, combined we kick butt. God bless America, my friends. God bless you. We'll see you next week.
All right,
Cheers.
see you next week.